welcome to yet another interview from San Diego Comic-Con, this time with the man that put the C in classy. Don't laugh, don't matter, they're gonna see it. Darwyn Cooke. Of course, you know him on Before Watchmen, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on today. So tell us a little bit about the Silk Spectre. I know that's your first one you're doing.
Silk Spectre is the book I'm working on with Amanda Conner, and we're co-writing, and Amanda's illustrating the book. I suppose, just to frame what I'm about to say, when we sat down to look at this project and look at all the characters we had, the one thing we realized pretty quickly when everybody started talking about what they were looking at doing was that every book was completely different. And that kind of became the unifying force behind it. And at that point, when we were looking at that and how we didn't have to sort of lock together, it got me thinking about Laurie. In that period of time right before she meets Dr. Manhattan, she's a teenager, and her mother's been pushing her towards this legacy sort of hero role. And I just thought, wow, there'd be a lot of conflict there, and maybe just a nice coming-of-age story, something very simple that takes place shortly before the Crime Busters meeting, so that we see how Laurie goes from being a rebellious kid to actually committing to the Silk Spectre identity. And so that's what we decided our story was going to be about.
It's definitely different. I like the little asides that are more sort of cartoony. Yes. You know, those are kind of cute, and it's interesting because, as you said, it's completely different. Like, for instance, in the Minutemen, it has a completely different feel to it, and in a good way. It's almost refreshing to compare them to like the Night Owl and the other ones that are in the series.
Absolutely, and you know, I suppose the reason Amanda was so important to me when it came to working on this is I've never been a 16-year-old girl. So
I gotta agree. I've been there as well. I've never been a 16-year-old girl.
I had some serious doubts about my ability to sort of tap into part of her personality. I knew I could set a story in motion.
Right.
And like I created this idea of when she felt something strongly, we'd have this panel that expressed it, and then Amanda took that and ran with it.
It's great. It really does show the sort of it feels like a young book.
Exactly. And
it does. It
we
really
actually, the way Amanda describes it is it's like an Archie comic with beatings.
You know what? She's absolutely right. That's totally what it feels like.
And so that's exactly what we are trying to do. And I think the readers will probably be pretty surprised next week when issue 2 comes out.
Really?
To see how far afield the story goes.
Well, I know she's going to San Francisco. That was sort of the last little bit we saw when she left off.
She certainly does. And yeah, by the time we get to the end of number 2, things are very, very different.
Yeah? She grows up a bit very fast?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, shifting gears a little bit, Before Watchmen, Minutemen number 2 just came out.
That's right.
And that too it felt a little different than the first one. The first one felt like a very good introduction. This feels like a little bit more in line with pushing a lot of story through.
You know, there were some complaints about the fact that the first issue felt like a setup issue. But the fact of the matter is, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that a lot of the readers might be aware of some of these details, not everybody is.
Right.
And when I looked at it as a complete story, I found it very important to have that up front, especially for people who haven't read it. And when we trade up and collect this, it'll be around forever. So someone can come to this cold, and they won't need the prior knowledge.
Unless they just want unless they want it, and I gotta say, I love that all the way around about the entire line. When it was first announced, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, you can't touch that," but it's not. It's not changing anything. It's elaborating. Is what I see it as.
I was very careful. The 2 projects that I got involved in, I was meticulously careful to make sure that what I was going to do wasn't going to disturb what's happening in Watchmen. The last thing I want to do is interfere with anything that's in the main book. So With Minutemen, I knew I was safe because they're in, what, 4 panels of the book, other than a 2-page sequence.
You don't really know that much, so it's,
They're literally character designs. You know, Silhouette has 1 line of dialogue in the entire book. So I was very comfortable with working with those characters because I knew I wouldn't be disturbing anyone. And then with Lori, that became the challenge. And that's why that sort of coming-of-age story was a perfect little place for us to work.
Yeah, it's just great work, and you're doing great double duty on Minutemen.
Oh,
it's a lot. I mean,
that's the way I like to work. So that's a normal day for me. You know, Parker or the Spirit.
Yeah, I was going to say Parker also. I mean, that just came out.
I love to cartoon.
Yeah.
So you know, that's the best for me. You know, in terms of something that I'm doing, I prefer to do it that way if I can. And then you know, you get into Silk Spectre, and I didn't think I had all the tools.
Yeah.
So you know, I got the best possible person on the planet to work with me and make me look good.
It looks great. You don't need help. Guys, the always amazing Darwyn Cooke, thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it.
In fact, we're here at San Diego Comic-Con 2012, before Watchmen. Big deal. We got the original editor, and we got Amanda Connor. But Len, let's start with you. All right. You were on this book originally, and you're writing 2 stories technically.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about each one?
They're good.
Well, yeah, I know. One of them was the pick of the week on the podcast, so there you go. That's good, right?
Ozymandias is maybe the hardest, well, it's actually the second hardest book I think of the group to write, because despite everything, he's the character you know the least about.
Right.
So I have a lot of material to fill. And the question becomes, since he's telling you the story, how much of what I'm filling in is true?
Right.
You know, because he's setting this up for posterity, and he could just be lying to posterity, so he sounds better when it comes out.
Right. So he felt like a hero in the first one.
Yes, and
like he got picked on, his family died.
All true.
Right.
But some of his emotional commitments to other people aren't necessarily what he says they are. The hardest one is actually the Curse of the Crimson Corset, which I came up with when I was asked by Dan to do another tale of the Black Freighter. I said, why? He said, huh? I said, you know, the whole idea was that because superheroes were real in this version of the DCU, pirate comics became popular.
Right.
Why don't we tell a story from one of the other pirate comics? And he said, oh yeah, cool. So I did.
I can actually see Dan doing that.
Then they set it up as 2 pages in each book because they couldn't figure out a way logically to weave it in and out of the story as how it had done in the original. So I said, that sounds great, let's do it. It never crossed my mind that I would have to come up with 35 cliffhangers in doing it that way. So it's been an adventure.
Okay.
So far.
How is it going back to the Watchmen universe as a writer this time and not the editor?
It's interesting. You've got a path that's sort of already drawn out for you, but you've also got to create your own crossroads with it, I think, and it keeps it exciting.
Okay. Amanda, you're doing a book also.
Yes, I am.
And apparently Darwyn told us you're like the biggest Watchmen fan in the world. If he needs facts, he comes to you. You're doing Silk Spectre.
Yes, I am. I don't know if I'm the biggest one because I've actually gone online for reference.
Right.
And there are people who are bigger Watchmen fans that have dissected every little thing, which is actually a big helpful tool for me.
I'm sure.
As I'm doing the book. And it's pretty incredible. So and I'm really enjoying it. And I remember being asked to do this and thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then once I started doing it, I'm like, oh, this is huge.
By the way, you're not the only one. I go online to check out your facts.
Yeah, I know. Now I know the original book, right? And you probably do too, but you've known it for a really long time. Front, back, and sideways. I know that book.
And yet I still have to check the reference.
Oh yeah, I'm always like, I keep it, it's my little Bible. I keep it next to my desk, and I always go back to it if I need to know something.
Mine too. It's always right next to me.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about the stuff that's going to happen with Lori? Apparently, issue 2, something happens, we heard, from Darwyn. She grows up fast. That's why we
Yes,
heard.
she does. Yes, she does.
Okay.
So she grows up fast. You actually get to see her kick a little bit of ass.
Nice.
Which is nice, because I know, well, actually she kicked a little bit of ass in the first issue.
Right.
But you get to see her kick more in the second issue.
Was it your idea to do the crazy like anime style stuff when she's thinking about stuff?
That was actually Darwyn's idea, but I ran with it. You know, he's like, you know, let's do this, and I'm like, okay, let's do it here, and let's do it here, and let's put one here too. You know,
Right.
so
And it works.
It does. It does. It's a lot of fun because when you're that age, you have a great imagination. I remember being a teenager and just fantasizing about stuff, thinking about stuff, and you're not so bogged down with the weight of the world. I mean, she is more than most people her age, but she still has that active fantasy life, and it's even more active because she's very overprotected. You know, her mom is like, her whole life is what her mom has made for her. So, you know, like she just fantasizes about, like, you know, the boy that she can run away with and the thing that she can do that, you know, is probably never going to happen for her.
Right.
You know, so yeah, you know, she's a 16-year-old girl who's very active.
And you kind of know something about, 16-year-old girl. You were one.
Yeah, you know what it makes me feel, you know, when I think about it, I feel a little misty about it because I don't fantasize as much as I used to. When I was, you know, a teenager, I used to just have this crazy imagination, and I think, you know, just work, even though you're supposed to have it for comics, you know, you're still always thinking about, oh, I gotta make sure I, you know, hit this deadline, and I hope I have enough toilet paper, and, you know, I gotta make sure this gets taken care of, and, you know. So there's always, like, you know, the real world always weighs down on you and makes it so that you can't just daydream so much.
Right.
So,
And you're also doing a statue design. It's not the first time you've done statues.
Right.
But you have a Silk Spectre.
She came out so beautiful.
She did.
Yeah, I looked at her, I was like, oh my god, she's so pretty. Yeah, she really, they did a great job with her.